The first warm afternoon of spring usually triggers a specific kind of tunnel vision. After months of waiting, gardeners often rush into the yard to squeeze a month's worth of landscaping into a single high-intensity marathon. This creates a massive biomechanical gap. You are moving from the sedentary baseline of winter, spent mostly on couches or at desks, straight into hours of deep squatting, the heavy lifting, and repetitive pulling. For dormant muscles, this sudden transition is a physical shock. The demand for immediate high-power output causes micro-tears in the muscle fibers and triggers acute inflammation in joints that haven't faced significant loads in months. This heat map shows the consequence of that effort. When you hold a hunched weeding position, the mechanical stress isn't distributed evenly. It concentrates into 3 high-risk zones: the lower lumbar spine, the anterior knee joints, and the front of the shoulders. Digging and hauling bags of soil for 3 hours generates a cumulative physical load similar to a high-volume strength circuit at the gym. However, while an athlete prepares for that intensity with a warm-up, the gardener typically starts the work cold. Preventing acute injury requires a shift in perspective. To maintain your mobility over a long growing season, gardening must be approached as a dynamic, athletic event rather than a casual chore. Before you pick up a shovel, you need a physiological warm-up. This isn't just a formality. It increases blood flow to peripheral tissues and improves the elasticity of your connective fascia. You can establish this baseline with a brisk 5-minute walk around the yard. This simple movement primes the cardiovascular system and prepares the nervous system for the more complex movements ahead. Next, you need to engage your abdominal bracing. This involves consciously contracting the deep transverse abdominis muscle to form a protective internal corset around the lumbar spine before you attempt to lift or bend. Exercises like the bird dog activate this core stability while simultaneously firing the glutes. This sequence ensures your larger muscle groups are ready to take the load when you start working at ground level. Without this stabilization, the muscular armor protecting your spine remains offline. This forces the small, fragile discs in your lower back to absorb the entire mechanical shock of the work, leading to immediate strain. Once you begin planting, the primary risk is how you reach the soil. Most injuries occur when gardeners round their backs and bend directly from the waist, putting the spine in a compromised, weakened position. The solution is the hip hinge. Pivot at the hips and knees to keep the spine in a neutral alignment. When lifting heavy loads, keep the bag pressed against your center of gravity and drive upward force exclusively through your legs. Vertical movement is only part of the risk. Shoveling or moving pots often introduces rotational shear, a dangerous twisting of the spine occurring when throwing material sideways while your feet are planted. To eliminate this shear, pivot with your feet. Turning your entire body as a single unit ensures that your hips and shoulders remain aligned, protecting the delicate structures of your back. Mastering the hip hinge and foot pivot transforms manual labor into safe, functional strength training that builds resilience rather than causing damage. Many gardeners fall into the psychological trap of the marathon session, feeling a compulsive need to finish an entire project in one unbroken push. Repetitive motions, such as raking or pruning, rapidly exhaust isolated muscle groups. As these specific muscles tire, your form breaks down, shifting the load from your muscles to your joints and tendons. You can manage this endurance limit through task switching, alternating between active digging and lighter tasks like deadheading every 20 minutes allows overworked muscle groups to recover. Ergonomic modifications also provide a mechanical advantage. Try raised beds, use kneeling benches, and long-handled tools to change leverage points, offloading stress from your knees and back. Additionally, working in the heat causes invisible fluid loss. This dehydration causes the joint fascia to stiffen, which reduces your range of motion and significantly increases the risk of muscle cramps. Pacing, tool selection, and hydration are active biological requirements. They are the only way to maintain your biomechanical integrity through a full day of labor. Cleaning your tools and heading inside marks the end of the work, but your physical protocol still requires a final phase. Hours of leaning forward lock the body into anterior dominance. This state is characterized by hunched shoulders, a collapsed chest, and tight, shortened hip flexors that pull on your lower back. You need targeted counter stretches to reverse this posture. By pulling your arms backward and opening the chest, you allow the tight muscle tension lines in your shoulders and deltoids to elongate and release. You must also release the hamstrings and hip flexors. Stretching these areas removes the residual tension that pulls downward on your pelvis and spine after a day of kneeling and bending. This 5-minute postural reset is the most effective way to prevent delayed onset muscle soreness. It ensures that the effort you put in today doesn't leave you immobilized tomorrow. When we shift our perspective, the garden stops being a source of unavoidable aches. It becomes a space for developing lifelong, functional physical fitness. Joint pain and stiffness are not inevitable side effects of gardening as you age. Often, they are simply the result of poor mechanics and a lack of physical preparation. Implementing these warm-ups, safe lifting techniques, and recovery routines will build genuine structural strength throughout the growing season. A garden's long-term health is a direct reflection of its caretaker's physical durability. By tending to your own joints and muscles with the same precision you apply to your soil, you ensure that both you and your landscape can thrive together.